listening to the Nii Lamptey Show. My name is Joey, and this week I am joined by Neil.
Hello.
And by Dom.
Hi there.
What a week. Moments of the week, fortnight, month, however long it's been. Neil, you start us off.
It would be very easy right now, Jody, just to say the win 4-1. But I'm going to be a bit more specific and very random, but not random. Matt Godwin's performance against Fulham.
Oh, okay.
Mainly because I don't think we criticised him on the last pod when we were talking about Millwall, but we felt he could do more, and it wasn't really the partnership that we wanted up front, and it was just all a little bit off. So for him to put in a performance like that against Fulham was a real step change for him, I thought, and he did stuff which you don't normally expect from him, specifically that pass to Gyökeres for his second, which was incredible. Really, really good. But I just think generally his performance, and I just love it when, while I thought most of the team played very well that day, him specifically, I thought he stepped up really nicely, and I was pleased that he proved me not wrong, because I didn't say anything bad, but different.
What do you think about the retrospective ban?
I don't like that stuff anyway. I just think in that situation, in that scenario, there's kind of, you can get touched and go down, get touched, not get that, go down, not get touched, go down. You have all these things, and half the time the referee doesn't give you what you deserve anyway, and it's just like, it's just not worth it. And the only reason he's getting this against him is because we're on TV, and if that's not the sign of something that's not like consistent, and it's just going to make people feel like it's unfair application of something. I know he did dive. Yeah, it was a dive, and he didn't get touched. But also, you could say, I'm not saying this, but you could say it was a reckless tackle in the box, and you deserve to get punished for that sort of stuff. It's just like there's far more pressing issues for them to deal with, I think, than going after something because they saw it on TV. I just think there's more to it than that.
But as well, who are our next two? Which games will we be banned for?
Well, this is also bullshit, isn't it? Like the punishment during a match is a yellow card. The punishment, if the ref doesn't deem it as a yellow card or misses it, is a 2-game ban. It's like they're not the same thing.
Well, so I think that's.
I know you can't.
You're right. That's crazy. But also, if I'm Fulham, and then so I haven't got the benefit of him being disciplined in that game, and obviously you've got the detriment of conceding a penalty. But if he's now suspended when we play against two of Fulham's promotional rivals, as an example, do you know what I mean? Is he like, oh, hang on a second.
Yeah.
That isn't helping us either.
No, it's just a really strange, randomised application of the law, I think, and I don't like it. There's much more they could do for genuine. It's then come down to perspective, doesn't it? Whether you think that diving is a genuine thing, but I think there's far more cynical things in the game than going down because someone's made a tackle at you.
True. Dom, your moment of the week.
I am going to go for Victor Gyökeres' reaction to Ian Matson's goal, which it was a look of such disbelief that I was genuinely worried that the goal had been disallowed for some reason. It was just there was sort of like disbelief at a really good goal scored by your teammate, and then there was what Gyökeres produced, which was just an absolutely stunning, just like piece of acting almost. It was just so convincing.
Neil or Dom, do you want to kind of walk us through specifically, step by step, that reaction?
Dom, you go for it.
It was just that he sort of just turned and faced the crowd and just sort of almost pulled the Macaulay Culkin face. That just had me so convinced.
Yeah, it made for a good photo, didn't it?
My moment of the week is going to sound like a humble brag, and I'm sure that it is to some extent, but I'm going to proceed with it anyway. Is that since we've been more better as a football club, there have been more and more people asking for the opinions of the Nii Lamptey Show. And I've been on a couple of things recently, and I couldn't help but feel like at a half time, well, actually, let's say on about 80 minutes. So I've done a thing for The Athletic, and I did a thing for the Anfield Wrap the other day. But at half time, the reason that I'm paid the big box and asked to go on the big ticket stuff is for the sort of like world class insight and analysis that yielded opinions at halftime, such as what I would do is take off Matty Godden and Ian Maatson. That was my.
Everyone was saying
classic
that.
JC moment.
That was where I was at. I was like, I think Maatson looks tired and we're going to get done on his side, and I just can't see him continuing his attacking intent. Yeah, that worked. And then again, like you say, Matty Godden. I mean, I can't remember the game exactly, but did he have an impact in the second half? I'm not 100%. The other thing in terms of moments of the week for me is that at half time we had to go out as soon as the game finished, and so I tried to quickly go for a shower at half time. And when I came out of the shower, when I came back into the living room, it was Godden wheeling away, having scored the penalty, and I was like, "How long have I been gone for?" I really couldn't get my head around it. I was like, at no point in the end of the first half was like, this will be fine. We'll probably be 2-1 up within 6 minutes. That's it again.
He's just entered a new dimension, mate. That's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's, for many reasons, it's probably a reason to take more showers, perhaps. Right, okay, so let's start with where it started. So we're right back to Peterborough. So as brilliant as Fulham was, I don't know, it's reductive to just compare things, but was Peterborough actually even a bit better?
Yeah, it was sort of a different kind of game. It was sort of one of those where it almost felt like it's one of those games that a good team that goes on to do something that season wins. There was most certainly an air of expectation just sort of heading into the ground at night, and sort of almost in the territory of, I've got a bad feeling about this crew, Johnson's Paint Trophy, massive vibes here. Just like queues to get in, and it was Friday night and people were so drunk. There's so many people around me who were very drunk. And I was thinking to myself, if we don't win this could get quite nasty, just sort of all the congestion and people a bit tired and emotional, to use Imogenism. As for the game itself, it sort of felt like the players themselves almost had that attitude too of, this is definitely going to be a win, and we're just waiting for that one moment, and it's going to be brilliant, and it's all going to kick off. And then the first half was quite tense in that regard, because we were looking for that moment. There was a few chances where it could have happened, but it didn't feel like we were quite taking the game by the horns. We were sort of controlled, but we weren't dominating it in a comfortable way. There was a few peaceful breaks. There was a couple of penalty appeals for us, but it all just felt a little bit like we were trying to almost force it a little bit, and we just needed to calm down a little bit and sort of just be a bit more patient waiting for those openings. And I thought on the stroke of half time, a potential flashpoint where Johnson Clark Harris sort of went down in a bit of a clash with Carl McFadden. Looked a little bit like a dive in my book for Clark Harris. And I thought it was just one of those sort of pantomime villain moments where that's the kind of thing Johnson Clark Harris would love, to get the crowd against him and to get him really, really fired up and make it sort of a classic, really annoying Coventry home game where it just slowly slips away from us. But then we had the second half, and any kind of sort of Peterborough stepping things up just didn't happen, and we slowly gained more and more control of the game. We have one chance cleared off the line, and then we have the move for the first goal, which is a Peterborough corner, I think, and Hamer's there making the first intervention. Quick break, Allen playing it, goes down the left, Maatson has a go, he's body around the box, and Hamer, who is normally a defensive midfielder, when he's played recently, he's in the 6-yard box there for the tap in. He's such an incredible player. And even for the second goal, just the way he played that header, I'm not sure there are many players who would have had the presence of mind to even try that. They might want to take a touch or something.
Let alone the neck muscles.
Yeah,
Strong neck. Yeah,
it's just crazy. Sort of just the decision making, sort of the range of options he seems to have available to him versus other players. And on that second goal, Todd Kane got his assist after about 50 crosses. He has a very specific intention when it comes to crossing. he's going to float it to the back post, whether that's the right decision or not.
Is it fair to describe him as an English fullback?
Yeah.
I think if that game had been on Match of the Day, Alan Shearer would have been doing the analysis, and he'd have been like, "This is a player to watch. this is the sort of guy that strikers love." You're like, "Well, I don't know whether there is anymore, mate." But
it confused me so much because I made the mistake, I think, of putting this was a Friday night game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think I put our fresh podcast out maybe 3 hours before that match, and this was 3 hours of me saying, "Oh, Matty Godden's not doing that," but also having this irrational, again in air quotes, hatred of Todd Kane, and he was putting in a performance where, if you're going to judge him on the detail, you'd say he needs to get across in sooner or later. But if you're just judging him on football stuff and just he's really involved and he's looking great, and I was like, oh God, if anybody listens to that podcast now and has any kind of opinion, they're going to absolutely crucify me. But I'm always happy that our players do good stuff. So I don't mind if he proves me wrong. Again, air quotes.
Yeah, he's definitely someone who is going to put a cross in the box, and I wonder whether that's something you can sort of manage around. I think the more he plays, I think the more we're just going to see Gyökeres or someone just run to the back post, because that's where you know it's going.
Whether there's anyone there or not.
Yeah.
Get it to the back stick, mate.
Yeah. And then for the third goal, there was enough of a delay sort of in the move where Waghorn had the ball and O'Hare was in space for him to then pick out Gyökeres, where you're like, oh, why didn't you put... Oh, O'Hare, of course. And then it goes to Gyökeres and it sort of just loops in one of those. He's a striker in great form, and that just goes in. And Waghorn definitely made the better decision there. It's been a bit of a theme over the past few games where I think O'Hare has really started to lose a fair bit of confidence when it comes to shooting.
Yeah.
There was obviously that didn't actually involve him. He had one or two chances against Peterborough, which didn't. He just never looked like scoring. Against Luton, he had one shot which was just like so lacking in power. Ended up dribbling through to Waghorn, who then did something special with it. And then for skipping ahead to the Fulham game, I think the fact that he lays the ball off for Gyökeres there is more someone who isn't really confident in their shooting, unless just like really unselfish, presence of mind kind of play.
And it was pretty snatchy, not to go too ahead, but it was like, gotta get it over to him quickly. And it was like, he wasn't as cool and calm as maybe could. That's very critical, but I think the detail again is it does show, like you've just said, a little bit of lacking of confidence in those areas. But I don't really know if he should have confidence in his shooting, given how much he's been with us for quite a long time now, and his shooting has never been that great, has it?
To what extent is he overrated, Dom?
I mean, it's interesting listening to the Not the Top 20 podcast this week, and they said that O'Hare would be the player, if he was missing, would be the most detrimental to us. So I don't know what it is with O'Hare, why he catches the eye of opposition fans so much. Maybe, I think part of it is, I think naturally, those kind of sort of attacking players who can beat defenders will catch your eye. Like someone like Dembele for Peterborough, he put in an eye-catching performance against us.
Yeah.
But then I think he'd be the kind of player, if you watch regularly, you go, okay, you've beaten that player. What have you done next? And there's definitely a couple of moments for Dembele against us where he'd done the hard work in getting to a good position, but he was holding the ball for too long. And I think, I think it's just a natural thing that players who can be placed in the final third are particularly eye-catching. They're the players that, when you're an opposition fan, they scare you a little bit. And
I think it's a good measure, though, isn't it? I sometimes, because obviously we've already done this today, but we get very specific in our judgments, and we probably hold more critical views on our players, but the O'Hare one's really useful because you have people who only see the highlights, who are neutrals and see him involved in doing good stuff, and they don't see the whole picture. You also see away fans, like you say, who come and watch him and feel threatened by him because he is a threatening player. I think it's still really valid to take that judgment, and you sometimes you have to divorce yourself from your home team prejudice. Because I mean, my mate, who's a neutral, he's a Liverpool fan, but he turned up and watched the game against Fulham, and he loved watching O'Hare. He thought it was really exciting, really fun to watch, and if that's what gets people interested, then you can't dismiss it. But I think we do get the warts and all version of O'Hare. We get the all the things that he struggles with, and the good stuff. And it's in many ways it reminds me of the kind of the Luke Thomas Ryan Kent player who is always a threat. There's no denying he's a threat, and the more you watch him and the more you feel like he gets in such good positions that he should be doing more with it. And we feel that frustration more than anybody else because we just want him to have that end product, because everything else he does I think is actually really, really, really impressive.
To be clear as well, and I'm sort of playing devil's advocate by saying to what extent is he overrated, and it's more, I think he's brilliant, and I think makes a massive difference for us, and I do think that he improves the team hugely. And dynamically speaking, I don't see a lot of players that have got his overall skill set. But whenever we're on Sky, or whenever kind of, like you say, whenever there's an opposition view, it tends to be that people are like, this guy is destined for stardom. And you're like, I don't know if
it's a bit much, isn't it? It is a bit much.
I think this might be his level. Like, I think this is what he's good at. Like, I can't see him. I don't think he's James Maddison. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's like I don't think he's going to be playing for, like, I don't know, who was seventh in the Premier. I don't think he's going to go to Everton at some point, and people will be like, wow, this guy is the real deal. I think he's going to be like a really good Championship attacking midfielder. And I don't know whether that's people just desperate to be like on the crest of a wave of someone who's on the way up. And it's not meant to be a criticism of him, but I sort of think, I watch him and think, oh, I really like you. And then I hear opposition fans talking about him, and I sort of think, yeah, calm down. Like, it's not, let's not get carried away. Right, so other thoughts from Peterborough, Dom?
Just to wrap it up, that for a period of minutes we were top of the Championship, and that was amazing. I was as we were walking out the ground, West Brom scored their second goal, and there's one or two smart asses going around, like, to the people chanting, "We're top of the league." Just going, well, we're not actually anymore. Just let me enjoy it. I think that wraps it up for Posh.
Beautiful. Now, before we talk about the other game that we played, I would like to tell you about a mad fever dream that I had between the two games, between the Peterborough and the Fulham game. I had this crazy dream that we came up against a team called Luton, and just did the opposite of everything that we've done this season. Ian Maatson just decided that he wasn't going to turn up at all. We had the three defenders that we've got that are usually absolutely rock solid at defending crosses into the box, just watched them fly over their head into an opposition player. We had, I'm still having nightmares, away from joking, about the first goal, and I still can't understand how Clark Salter gets turned like that in an adult professional game. Like, it's absolutely appalling. Yeah. The distance that the player has to travel to get to the other side of him and get the ball on the other side, you just think, how have you got round there? This is what, like, he was. I think the thing is that they never really recovered from that start, did they? They were so asleep when that game started that they just never really got any of their composure back, did they? It was such a strange performance that I'm not sure. I mean, the big difference for me is I wasn't at that Yeovil game, which I gather is probably the biggest touchstone from recent years. I was working that day. It was a Sunday. I don't know if you remember. And I just remember having the EFL updates, and my phone buzzed 4 times in about a quarter of an hour at the start of the game. And I was like, what? what's going on here? So yeah, we're specifically not focusing on the Luton game particularly because I think it's a needless dent in the sort of otherwise unbridled optimism and positivity of the last few weeks. And I also think it's just a total aberration and a blip. I'm not sure that it warrants much kind of navel-gazing analysis so much as it is just like one of them things.
There are a couple of things there though. So Luton are good. That's one thing. Like they, in terms of what they do it really well. They're threatening. They probably haven't done it, or at least finished things off.
But even they looked surprised, didn't they?
Well, you would be. I mean, you're like, we have the best defence. We are one of the best teams, and then, I mean, we were horrific like in terms of defence, really bad. And the other thing, like the comparison with the Yeovil one's always interesting. So in the sense where it was just inexplicable how many goals we let in such a short period of time, makes a lot of sense. The one difference I see between this and the Yeovil one is with that, I don't think we weren't great against Yeovil, but we weren't horrific against Yeovil. They were just scoring. Whereas some of the chasm in actual performance levels versus where these players should be playing at, like Clark Salter out of nowhere, like we were praising him like nobody's business, and it was horrendous, like genuinely poor quality football. And it's like, how do you get to that level on the night? It's just, this isn't right. And they were all doing the same thing, and you're right, the shock seemed to get them, and I'm very, very happy to put that one down as a blip, because there's no way I could accept any of those players playing at 11 or that's not what they do. This is like, you said earlier, it was like just do the opposite of what you do. It's like the reverse Costanza, where like nothing goes right for you at all. It was absolutely, it was a criminal game, wasn't it? Really bad.
Every goal seemed to have roughly, apart from the first, seemed to have sort of roughly the same theme, which was like a really innocuous first ball or chance was created or someone shot where there was basically nothing on at all. And you were like, right, okay, that's fine. Just clear that then. And instead, it just dropped to someone who was just like ludicrously unmarked. And you were like, what? You've just done this? You've just left a guy. The guy is stood on the penalty spot without a player within 10 yards of him and he's headed the ball. Like, where are you?
Bloody fake Grealish. What's he doing getting on headers? Come on.
Every single one, you were like, this. What? So, yeah, like I say, we're not. I
love how we can laugh about it.
Oh yeah, because I guess the Fulham was like a very nice sort of cleanser to it. The only other thing that I can, not in the same way, but that sort of like similar levels of ludicrousness that I could compare it to is, I don't know if you remember getting beat, I think it was 5-1 by Tranmere at Sixfields when Ryan Lowe scored a hat trick.
Yeah.
And walking out and thinking, I didn't think we were that bad. Like,
they just kept scoring every shot. Yeah,
I walked out of that game and I was like, that was the most enjoyable 5-1 defeat I've ever seen. Like, it's just a game that just defied reality. Sometimes you kind of just have to go, well, I don't know what happened there, but it wasn't football, so let's just see what happens next week. Luckily for us, what happened next week was quite good.
It was, wasn't it? And well, I think I really enjoyed one portion of it, and that was the fact how it kind of continued in the same vein, not to the same horrific extent, but we went behind and it felt a little bit unjust, and you're like, okay, is this the start of us having to deal with adversity more regularly, and this is more difficult for us? And that's why I like the fact that we had to, it was a continuation. We didn't get an early goal, we didn't exercise the demons immediately. It was a continuation of the bad luck, the bad whatever. We went behind and we still had to fight against that, and we then came out and just blitzed them second half. But it was just, there were bad things about that game, and most of them involved the weather. I mean, it was absolutely tipping it down, and I got drenched for no real reason because I had a bloody good coat on and it still got soaked. So for that entire first half, I was very cold and very wet, and we weren't like, we're doing better. We looked a little bit on edge, and I think they were a good team, and they were, most of the times this season I think we've looked superior, but I thought it was a well matched first half, and I thought we were both two good teams coming at each other. They had a strong defence which were taking the ball out nicely, And you realise it felt like it was going to be a tough game, and you would have to work hard to win it. And then obviously they take the lead relatively early on, I think like 15 minutes or 18 minutes, something like that. And the more you look at it, it's by the letter of the law. And if your children, it's a blatant foul. It's not quite as blatant if you just put into context everything else that goes on in a football pitch. And it's like, he shouldn't be doing that, but also it's not. I wasn't entirely frustrated, especially when I watched it back. I was like, oh God, I just want him to be a little bit stronger, which is hard against Mitrovic because he's incredible, really.
Very strong.
Yeah, we let that goal in, and you do wonder. Then you're like, okay, we've been here before. We've had good starts to the season, and then something doesn't go our way, and then we kind of tail off. And it usually would happen when we played Bristol City, but we've moved on a bit since then. And I just thought the first thing to mention is just kind of the team shape and the team choice, obviously. So we had to, by many reasons, had to make a big change going across the middle, really. So you had Dabo on the right, you had Kelly and Sheaf in there, and it was all felt very new. And Kelly specifically, who has been out for a long time, came in and looked pretty settled, I thought, straight away. I was worried because even now, even though he's still part of the club and he's been with us all the way and he has played at this level, I still, as much as I like him, don't think of him as a championship midfielder. I feel like I always worry that he's not going to be up to it. And yet I thought against Fulham, he stepped into the middle really nicely, and in a probably more defensive looking midfield had us ticking over really quite well. And I thought that was something that worried me to start with. Actually turned out to be a really, really good move. Obviously, Dabo came straight back in. There's no way you keep him out of the team. And if it's not only for balance, but also for the fact that he will do more than just one thing from right wing back, that was useful for us as well. I thought, him being on the right wing, really hugging that touchline, being there, making sure he's always the option, gave us great width, great out ball, in the way that the Gyökeres long ball actually wasn't something that we used that much, or at least we didn't use very well that day. But I'm going to be honest, I was really quite pissed off during the first half because I was cold and wet, and I don't remember too much of the detail, but I do remember feeling like, okay, if we're going to win this, we're going to have to earn it. And we were playing well, we were working relatively hard, and the shape was looking a bit more sturdy than what we'd seen before. And it was also felt like a good test because Fulham were good. You move into the second half, and then, as you said, Jerry, all hell broke loose relatively quickly, and you didn't quite know where it came from. But once we started motoring, we just looked a threat again, and we looked like they only had one level, and by they I mean Fulham. When they were matching us, it's fine, but when we stepped it up, they could try their best to counteract it, but there was no way that they were going to push against it, because the moment they did, we were going to take them on, and we were going to pull them apart. And Gyökeres he's just metronomic at the moment, isn't he? He's got such a clean strike and just an ability to put the ball away. And the first goal was just down to more intensity from around the pitch. You've got O'Hare, you've got Dabo, you've got people really pressing them who were absolutely desperate to play out from the back, and in situations when they probably shouldn't. And that was all their own doing. There's no getting away from it. It was a roll out to them. Poor touch, off balance. We pressed them down. I was just saying, Callum O'Hare drove on, and a lot of players would have tried to slot it in there. He nowadays just try and pull it back, and I think it's quite trivial now to criticise or question his pass. But in the grand scheme of things, if Gyökeres hadn't scored that because it was smashed at him behind him, you couldn't really blame him. Luckily, he's on it at the moment. He's aware, and he was able to not trickle it because it had a bit more power, but he actually was able to get it over the line and getting back to one run that quickly in the second half got us all fired up. Got Singer's corner well into it, and then we just pushed on from there. And Godden picked up his game. We've already mentioned what went on with the penalty. From afar, it looks like a penalty because he did it really well. The ref, obviously, from the angle, optical illusion, looks like it's a pen. The guy stuck his leg out. We all know it wasn't actually a foul. No, I'm not going to say that. There wasn't actually any contact. There's an interesting premise there about whether if somebody comes flying into you and you get out of the way of it, does the reckless tackle still get penalised? It's an interesting one.
If Matt Godden falls in the box and no one has touched him, is it a foul?
Is it Matt Godden falling in the box? Yeah, interesting. I don't know. It's obviously not a penalty, but he stepped up to pull it away very nicely. That's what he does, Matt Godden. He can put a penalty away very well. And then we turned it around, and then we turned on the speed, and it's quite interesting. Maatsen, he does get forward a lot, and he gets into the box a lot. And for a fullback, he's probably had more shots than I can remember any fullback having for a very long time. And full shots in the box as well, not Andy wing shots or anything like that. This is this is getting into really threatening positions, which is I really like about him. And he's had a few of those edge of the area balls dropped to him, and he's not quite struck them. This one he really struck. It was an absolute rocket. I'm sat like the opposite corner, so I'd seen the ball fly across my face. Anybody sat behind that would have a lovely view of it. I don't know, Dom, where were you sat? I mean, that must have looked excellent from your position.
Yes. So block 18. So it was sort of I'm all sort of level with the penalty box. So that was a good position to see that goal. Lovely.
Yeah. It was just a really pure, clean strike, and he's so early on in his career. We can still wonder whether he's got that available to him regularly, or whether it's just one of those Steve Froggatt moments where you finally hit it well and it goes in, and we never see it again. Because he's always in the box, and because he doesn't mind a little bit of a shot, I'm quite hopeful that he fancies himself doing that again, because that was pure, and obviously the reaction to it was from Gyökeres was very, very funny. And 3-1 up, we were all in disbelief at that point, because especially what happened in the week. This wasn't a game where we expected to batter one of the best teams in the league. I always felt this was going to be a really tough, tricky game. And then, what did we do? We go and really finish it off very, very early on with the fourth goal. And in many ways, probably the best goal for lots of different reasons. I thought, the pressing again was excellent. Godden's ball, the cynical amongst people might look at it as a kind of a hit and hope, but no, he's dropping that into an area where he knows it's going to do something for us.
Let's put it this way. Todd Kane wouldn't have done that.
He might have looped it into the corner flag, but it seems unlikely he would have picked out that pass. But also it just seems unlikely Godden would pick out that pass as well. It's just not something I've ever seen as part of his game. Yeah. But to do it in those circumstances. But I just thought the way that Gyökeres in that really slippy conditions stuck out his boot and was able to adjust his feet and everything so quickly to bring it down and then jab at the ball before anything could happen from the defensive point of view. That's such a sign of a player really in tune with himself. And it was a really good goal, even though it doesn't fly into the net or anything like that. Everything that was around that was just like, this is pure incisiveness from us. We're just finding ways to get the ball to the man who is going to put the ball in the back of the net. And it was a really good goal. By that point, I think we still had 20 minutes to go, and we'd seen them off.
Just very quickly on the goal before we leave that goal. Something that Paul pointed out that I sort of, in the heat of the moment, is I was sort of celebrating it and didn't break it down. And then later on Twitter, I saw Paul say the genius of it is the fact that is the touch that he takes before he shoots. And when you watch it back, is that what it looks on the first view when you're not watching it properly is a sort of like a opportunistic, scuffed shot into the corner. But actually, when you see the first touch that he takes to get it to the point where he can knock it past him, it's amazing. For a player that you just think, we keep talking about the diversity of strengths that he's got and the way that he holds the ball up and the way that he can beat players and everything. Again, without wanting to resort to pure football cliche of good touch for a big man, that's unbelievable to be able to just that one touch knocks it dead and puts it in a perfect position for him to just sweep it past. I think of all the things that we did that were fantastic in that second half, I just thought that touch, you just thought, God, you're brilliant, aren't you? You're not just... Because I keep thinking with Gyökeres, is at what point is this a Michael Mifsud purple patch of scoring that we'll never ever see again? Or are you really, really good? And increasingly, I mean, you never know, do you? It does increasingly feel like, no, you're good, aren't you? Like you're you're a really good player. So yeah, that was my two.
The timing, isn't it? Like, what I find with him is just it's always a split second before you think he's going to do it. Whether it's the goal he scored against was it Cardiff? I can't remember now. But that shot that came just a little bit sooner than you'd expected it to the goal the other day, like the touch and the finish. Again, you expected other players would have to wait till they're totally balanced or totally controlled, but he's just feeling it right now. And you say right now, this is a long period to be looking this good. It's been a great start for him. And even last season, there were starting to be signs that he had something a little bit different.
The other thing with him is that there's lots of people putting out lots of stats at the moment, but I gather he's also created more goals for us than anybody else in the squad. He's also hit the woodwork 3 times, and I just think he's doing everything, isn't he?
Yeah. He's running the show.
Yeah, he's completely there. And it's one of them strange things where I think we've seen it in the past where somebody, I think of all the things that you could hope for in a transfer window, is you hope for the first time ever that you're that miracle club that just sort of haphazardly signs a striker that somehow goes on to be amazing. I just didn't ever think that it could actually really happen. You sort of £1 million for this guy is absolutely batshit, isn't it?
Especially what he does and what I cannot get my head around is how little he gives the ball away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not even like he's doing nothing. He's driving past players, he's dribbling past players, and he still finds a way to retain it. I just think that's such a option for us because it's the shitty part of the game as well, where you got McFadden going long to him, knowing that he's going to get his back in, and he's big, but he's not the absolute biggest, and yet he's such a handful, and he's just going to get his body in the way in whatever way he needs to, and it's to have someone like that, like he's doing everything for us right now and doing it so well. And it sounds like, the other thing is, it sounds like he's out on his feet by the end of the games quite a lot. Maybe that's just the nature of what he's always working. And, that's the second time he's had 2 goals and he's not been able to get a hat-trick, which I always think is a sign of a confident / git manager, just doing both things at the same time. But I think Roberts did say he'd give them a go. He was absolutely knackered by that point, and you don't blame him because I thought that was an absolute top performance from him again. And some of it you put down to confidence, and a lot of it will do because, you don't play that well with being confident in what you do. But there's so much just raw stuff about him. That's just how he plays football, and it's just what he's got available to him as an athlete. That's excellent as well. So I don't have much more to say about Fulham. I just forgot that I was wet and cold in the second half because we absolutely blitzed them. It was great.
Magic. Dom, any thoughts on Fulham?
Well, nothing massively on top of what Neil says. Ben Sheaf was brilliant in the second half. He covered so much ground. It was a really aggressive, kind of assertive performance that I've never really seen from Ben Sheaf. Didn't really have him sort of pinned as like a ball-winning, tackling midfielder. I did think that was in his arsenal, but he showed that side to his game. It was really impressive. And I wonder whether that sort of came from being paired with Kelly, where he had a bit more of a license to step up and get in faces rather than sort of having to be the one sitting back and playing a bit more cautiously.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
I think one thing I should say, sorry, I know you carry on, Joe.
No, I hadn't got anything to elaborate on apart from that, so you go ahead.
It was more just a wider point where I haven't really spoken about too many individual players, but I thought pound for pound, most players on the day really put in a solid performance. You look at all the defenders, and having been dreadful the week, the kind of few days before, like Dom Hyam, while he had a couple of iffy moments first half, he then was just impeccable as always. McFadden again, he just really suits him being in the middle of those two.
Yeah,
he can just do more of the stuff that he's good at. And we do build nicely from the back. Spoke about Dabo, but he's just a different class on the right side. Maatsen, excellent. And O'Hare, just a real threat throughout, just carrying the ball, picking it up. Got real pace about him. I think we underestimate that. He's actually really nippy, and he moves the ball forward at a rapid pace. And yeah, I just thought just everybody on the pitch on the day really stepped up in that second half and felt way more comfortable. And that was the, kind of the team that I like. That's the team that I think we are. Not the madness of Luton.
I think as we kind of wrap this up and sort of, before we go into the international break, possibly do a sort of overall summation of the first quarter of the season, is I think the thing for me is that we have transitioned from last season where our first team was probably empirically capable of keeping us up, but that our strength in depth meant that we might have struggled, is we do seem to have seamlessly transitioned to a team whose first team is now very championship competent. The worry for me is what happens if Dabo is irreplaceable, Gyökeres is irreplaceable, Simon Moore is probably irreplaceable at this point. You wonder what happens if we go without, and I can't believe I'm saying this given how much stick I've given him over the years, but McFadzean at the moment, what we would do without him for a 4 or 5 or 6 game spell. I just look at it now and think there are certain areas where we could probably cope, but that's what the danger is in terms of, do we continue on this run? I think we probably do if we don't get the wrong injuries. Thoughts?
Although we've had a relatively shifty kind of few weeks in terms of players jumping in and out of the team. I mean, it would take you can't call these things, but it would take a lot of bad luck if too many of those players weren't in the team at the same time. I think there have just been some slight incremental upticks in options, which mean we do. I mean, certainly from a striking perspective, I think we can cope in the sense where we can cope by competing. Obviously, we can't replace Gyökeres, so that would be a big worry.
We haven't, but I just think we've made a left-sided player, for example. That's going to be a problem. We're going to have to work out how to play without a left side if Maatsen gets injured, or like I say, I know I was joking about it earlier, but I do think he's. Oh yeah, you're right. He's suspended. Yeah, I do think he looks tired as well. I do think
Maatsen suspended. Oh, I didn't. Oh, of course, yeah.
I think he could do with a rest. For just for kind of his own well-being's sake. But I don't know who comes in. Presumably it's Jody Jones that comes in, which is... Or
is it Todd Kane on the left, like Don was saying?
Wow, of course, yeah. Of course, yeah. I suppose that's the answer, isn't it? Turning inside out like David Bell used to but floated balls into the back stick from the other side.
Do they go to the near post if he's playing on the left?
They're literally the same shape. Like, it's going out of play, Todd. Come on.
He plays like a fullback whose only ever coaching instructions that he's taken on were from his dad when he was about 8. Get it. Don't let your winger get past you. Get it into the back stick. They're the only 2 things you need to know as a fullback. Now get out there and have at it. Yeah. I mean, actually, you're right. Maybe it's not as sort of lacking in strength in depth as possibly I think it is, but I don't know. Gyökeres especially, we've got to hope to God that nothing happens to him, because that is this team at the minute to a certain extent, isn't it? As brilliant as everything else has been, I don't think we're not third without him. I think we're a long way away from third without him, but we've got him, so good. And he's not on loan. That's the other strange conundrum of this, isn't it? Is that I could sort of feasibly imagine him being Adam Armstrong, where you go, it's good we've got him for a bit, but he's ours. Yeah.
Ours and good.
Okay.
Oh, just totally randomly, did you see was it the Peterborough game where there was highlights and the commentator just decided, well, I don't like, or I'm confused by the first syllable of his name, so I'm just going to call him Kerez.
Kerez. Yeah.
I don't think you could do that.
Yeah,
you can't just pick and choose which.
Apparently so.
Weird.
He was also calling Martin Waghorn just simply Horn. Yeah. Anything that we would like to see in the next quarter of the season?
Aside from a 10-game winning run?
No, I mean that's fine. You can just choose a 10-game winning run. Should you choose?
I mean, I'll go for that. But yeah, I suppose there's maybe a question mark over whether our fixture list has been somewhat kind to us. I think there's there's definitely tougher fixtures ahead. So it's going to be interesting to see whether there's sort of any balancing out. But sometimes there's, I think, sort of like the first 10 or 11 games that can sort of define the season, where teams at the top, they have the reputation of being the top teams, and the ones to beat, and the ones towards the bottom, they're in a struggle, and that's what their rest of the season tends to become about, unless they go on that fated 10-game winning streak. So yeah, it's going to be fun being near the top for a decent chunk, because I think even when you look back on those good seasons that sort of fizzled out in the past, like the Presley 6-0 season, the Mowbray season, where when you look back at it, it was only a month or two of good form, and then we were up there. So unless we absolutely hit the skids, it's going to be a pretty exciting season for quite a while. It's going to be fun to watch.
It's just a really enjoyable team to watch as well, isn't it? Just the way that we're playing and the individuals involved is just a lot of fun. And delighted to have been proved wrong with my relegation prediction season.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, good.
No, brilliant. Right, go and enjoy everyone's international break, and we will see you on the other side in a few weeks. Thank you, Dom.
All right, good to be on the show.
Thank you, Neil.
Thanks.
And thank you for listening. Bye.